welcome to the 8th episode of the Onion Skins podcast. I'm your host, Peter Foltz. And hold up. Oop, I'm getting a call. Beep boop, beep boop, beep boop. What's that? We got a brand new guest. It's Anya Martin, the one of the co-editors of this here podcast, the Cupertino native, lover of art and gamer. She's a gamer, connoisseur of all things Japanese, and the number one fan of the Bill Hader fan club.
Oh my god.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to out you like that. That was kind of rude of me.
Thank you.
But yeah, I thought you had a lot of laurels on that one. I don't think we've given. Usually it's just like composer, yeah.
Yes, because I'm the editor. I'm just getting more and more.
Yeah, I mean we interact on a fairly regular basis, so you get more laurels.
Oh, thank you.
We wanted to have a fresh new perspective on making art and our lives in animation, so we are constantly inviting new people, and this week was Anya, despite the fact that she's so close. She'll be editing this episode. You'll be editing this episode, won't you?
I'm gonna have a fun time.
Oh my goodness.
Listening to myself for an hour.
Let's hope you don't cut it too short. This is gonna be a fun episode, so definitely more chill, a little less formal, because I know you. It's hard not to let that kind of seep in to the interviewing process. But yeah, I guess let's just start this off by the way we do every podcast. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got to where you are today, how you ended up as a BFA 3 animator in the Calarts character animation program. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So I originally didn't want to go to Calarts. My plan was to be an illustration major at Art Center, but I think in like junior year of high school, I went to Portfolio Day in San Francisco, and I was like waiting in line for RISD, and they gave me a portfolio review, and I felt like they just kind of said my work was good and that was it. Calarts was right next to them, so I was like, okay, I'll just go and wait in their line. And they like roasted me. They just said that I had a lot to improve on, and I was like, if there's a lot I have to improve on, I want to go to this school. Like, I want to prove them wrong in a way, that I could get in and that I could be good. So I kind of like switched all that up, and I applied to Calarts, and I got rejected on my first try. So I took a gap year. I went to community college and worked on my portfolio pretty much that whole year. And then second try, got in. Yay!
Woo!
Woohoo!
I don't know if you've interviewed any first try babies yet. I always find it more interesting when people get rejected. Because, I don't know, there's a lot that happens in that. Like, it's the idea of failing and then coming back to something.
Oh, definitely.
But CalArts teachers are really good at roasting. That's like a strong suit of theirs, is letting you know when you're falling short. And most of the time, I mean, it takes a little getting used to, because prior to any CalArts people interacting with me, artists that is, like, I don't think I had any harsh feedback, like super harsh feedback from anybody on my drawing ability. But yeah, you're right. I think a lot of people kind of get on spite, like you.
But it was like partially spite, but also like they see that I have stuff to improve on while other schools didn't. And I was like, hey, I'd rather go to a school that thinks that there's stuff I can do more.
Where'd you say that you met with these CalArts people?
I met with them on National Portfolio Day.
Oh.
And it was held in San Francisco, I think at the school. Art Institute? Yeah, Art Institute.
I feel so stupid because I never like heard about any of these things. I guess I wasn't looking hard enough, but I never heard about any of these things. I never heard about any of the other programs where I'd be able to interact with these people, which is really stupid of me. But it's always cool to hear when other people have and hearing about their experiences with that.
I really didn't even want to go to the Portfolio Day because I thought I already had my whole thing planned out. Like, I thought Calarts was too far of a stretch to even apply to. I was like, oh, only good people get it. I don't even want to try.
I always find that it's like really hard, especially when you're starting out and getting portfolio reviews or hearing what people have to say or how to improve. It's always very nebulous. I mean, like, they tell you what you need to improve in, but the road to there is always really difficult. I feel like getting feedback on something or accepting it is a really tough thing, and it's like almost like a learned muscle or like a callus on your skin where you have to like tough through it in order to be able to get through it on the other side. It's not a skill that comes naturally to me, Is that something that comes naturally to you, taking feedback?
No, I feel like I do what a lot of people do, or like they take it personally, and
Yeah.
I don't like I dislike that about myself that I take it personally because I know you're not supposed to.
Yeah, but it's hard not to. It's like you're bearing your heart and soul most of the times in the things that you draw.
You give it to them on a plate, and you're like, please.
Yeah, you really are cutting your heart out of your chest whenever you do ask for feedback from somebody who's a professional or who's going to look at your work not the way that you look at it.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's definitely something that is tough, but I don't really have any. I think you just got to do it a bunch and then you kind of get used to it. Now I have learned this about you. I've learned that you attend conventions. You're a con girl, I guess, con woman,
I'm a con goer.
con person. What first of all, I guess which ones do you go to and what about them specifically draws you there?
Well, I kind of used to go. I don't really go to cons anymore, but I've been to, I think, maybe over 18 conventions. But this has been over like a span of like 8 years. But like I went to a lot of in my area, like in not in Cupertino, but in the area of Cupertino. But I went to a big one, Fanime. I went to
Hmm.
AX with Will and Jess, and we had a booth there first year, I think.
What were you tabling at this con?
Well, I was kind of just tagging along.
Oh, I see.
It was mainly Will and Jess's table, and I was like, "Hey, can I sell one thing here with you guys?" And I sold a little sticker of Winston from Overwatch.
Is that the only con that you've ever attempted to sell anything at?
Yeah, I wanted to sell at other cons, but I never followed through the idea.
Yeah.
Like I got a seller's permit and everything, but I just never applied.
I have never felt comfortable figuring out how to sell my work.
Mm.
I don't know. Like first of all, you have to have like a following of people. I feel like unless you go to conventions. I've never been to a convention. I like a fun one.
A fun one.
I went to I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say I've never been to one. The last thing I went to that was a convention was CTN, which is the Creative Talent Network Expo for most of the people working in animation, I guess. But I don't think I could ever figure out how to table for something like that. The idea of selling something and like figuring out how to get it produced and all that, and then just kind of hoping that I think I would get my feelings hurt. You're like,
But people walking by and you're like, "No way."
yeah, please,
Yeah.
please buy something. I would have a very hard time with that, and so I always am amazed when people are able to put a lot of effort and energy into something like that. And it's something I've always wished I was able to do better.
Did you like CTN?
I, I did. I really liked it. It's hard when everybody else like. I felt like a lot of people who I went with did not like it very much.
Mm.
I think they had some complaint. I mean, it was my first year in California, and it was my first like 2 months there that we went. And whenever they have CTN, it was like in October or something. But it was like during my first year, and I'd never been in an environment that was so full of people who liked to draw so much or to make things that I wanted to make. Even if it wasn't exactly what I wanted to make, I still felt pretty amazed at it, and it was fun. We met Loish, the Instagram famous artist. Like I forget what she's pulling these days as far as followers, but she has a lot of big follow. I remember I used to
Is
watch.
she a border?
No, she does like those like really like well rendered paintings of girls doing things.
That's so many
I
people.
know. I'm sorry. I'm not doing a good job explaining it,
Well
but I feel
rendered
like
girls.
everybody who like used to follow artists online, like the first one at least that I came and ran into was Loish. She had such a big following for the time.
Oh wait. Oh, now I know. I know who it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. It is well rendered
a
girls.
whole book.
Very flowy.
There's no. It is a very broad category of people who like to draw well rendered girls with like swords and fire eyes and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a good experience. I didn't go this year. I don't know why. I think I let other people's opinions kind of taint mine a little bit, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless.
I feel like I tend to be more, I guess, positive when it comes to these things. Like, I don't really have very high expectations for these events. For me, it's just like, I just wanted to go around Artist Alley. I feel like a lot of the people had higher expectations because of what's it called? The meetings and like the talks. But I didn't really care about that. I just wanted to see the artist and like kind of talk to them or just like tell them their work is good, that I like their work.
Yeah.
Because I guess, like you said, that'd be very scary to like sell your work there.
Yeah. I thought that was probably the coolest thing was getting to talk to people. Because prior to that, I didn't really ever talk to any like actual people working in animation. When I recognized the art of somebody who I followed on Instagram or something, or I'd seen their name in like a production credit, I was immediately like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I love your work." Even if I didn't really like know them or like know their work to the fullest extent, it was still cool to see all that. I remember I remember I ran into this guy that I seen on Instagram. I don't know why I just recognized him. He put himself in like one of his Instagram stories or a couple of them, and I just knew him.
You're like, ah,
I was like, he had like 10K followers or something like that. So I was like, and I followed him, and I was like, oh, this guy's work is really great. I was like, oh, hey, I like your work. I just wanted to tell you that. And then he goes, oh, thank you so much. All these artists are really nice, but this guy,
mm,
this guy said, oh, thank you so much. Can I give you a hug? And I was like, yeah. And then he was like, do you want a picture? And I was like, what? Oh, you kind of ruined it, dude. You ruined it. Some artists kind of do that. Some artists kind of let the clout get to their head, but he didn't
mm,
have too much clout. I don't want to poo-poo on the guy too much. I'm sure it was as exciting for him to be there as it was
mm.
for me. But yeah, kind of moving on to another topic of conversation. And part of the main reason why I guess we wanted to talk to you, I mean, Will, the producer of this here podcast, and
Oh, good old Will,
yeah.
the enigma.
The enigma. Yeah, he's always behind the curtain, never to be revealed. But yeah, he's the one editing these podcasts with you, and he does a really great job of putting everything together. And you and him find some really great guests for us, and we got you this week. So
You got me out of the selection of all these great people.
yeah,
Whee!
I think that a lot of the guests that we bring onto the show have or start at some point in their lives to have an idea of what they want to do pretty steadfastly. Like for me, it was like I wanted to be a board artist ever since I started watching Adventure Time when I found out what storyboarding was, like in late high school. And it's sort of that ends up changing at some point for a lot of people. Like a lot of people that we talk to who are our classmates end up like completely changing their minds or sort of being in this nebulous state of not really knowing what they want to do. And that is a real source of tension for a lot of people, including myself. And I don't know. Yeah, you don't seem to worry about that too much, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating your anxiety, but it seems like you're kind of taking things sort of one step at a time. What does that sort of look like for you?
Yeah, compared to other people, I feel like I don't really have a plan because I don't really have this big long-term goal, like to be a showrunner or director. But like I'm not opposed to the idea of it coming up in the future, but I just feel like right now for me doesn't seem like my goal currently. I I feel kind of lost as well. Like I know the general gist of like what I want to do. Like I'm interested in story and I want to be involved in it. And like just this year, taking Nicole's screenwriting class, it got me really into writing, and it felt like something I'm leaning towards more now. So it's like, oh, hey, boarding is interesting, but I also like writing, and I feel like I don't know. I sometimes don't think I have like the chops for boarding,
Hmm.
and that I may have it more in writing, but at the same time, I just started, so I feel like I'm like starting over again, but I'm like at my third year, so it feels like I'm very behind, and people already know what they kind of want to do.
Hmm.
I feel like someone who kind of made me feel more calm about this is like Danny Hines, the character design teacher for his second years.
Hmm.
He made me feel like there was someone out there in the industry who had a similar mindset to me. For me mainly, I just want to be part of like a collaborative community and be proud of the work that I make and be proud of the work that I contribute to people. Like I would be totally fine with just being like a boarder for a show. Like as long as I like the show and the people, I'm totally fine with that.
Hmm.
And I feel like he is that way in some sense, or from what I remember. He's happy with his job, he has a good income, he loves his family, he's happy where he is. And I feel like that's something I would really enjoy, just to kind of be happy with friends, family, social life, a good mix
Awesome.
of everything.
Don't we all? I mean, maybe not all of us. Some people are really super duper driven to be successful in a very one track minded kind of way. But I think that a lot of people can relate to you in that regard because like I don't know. I was thinking today I was driving around and I was thinking about this interview tonight I thought of like the analogy that's always used of like the caterpillar to a butterfly, like the metamorphosis. Like it's such an overused analogy, but like the most interesting part about that whole process to me is like how the caterpillar becomes a cocoon and what happens in there. I mean, the caterpillar just completely dissolves
Oh, whoa.
and is nothing for a while. Like it just is a
Is
bunch
this
of
goo?
proteins and goo. Yeah, it's just goo. It's all goo in there, and then it like sort of reforms into this new thing. I don't know. People don't talk about the goo, the caterpillar goo, and which
Goo!
is what I feel like right now. I feel
What's
like I
in the
started.
goo?
I feel like a lot of me and a lot of other people kind of start off with this one idea of what they want to do, and then they kind of go through this change, especially in light of all that is happening in the world right now. It's sort of hard not to be alone with yourself and with your thoughts. And so you come
Mhm.
out, and I don't know. We're all kind of. I'm goo right now. You're goo. We're all goo.
Yeah, I am goo right now.
Yeah.
I originally wanted to be a comic artist when I was younger. Like, it was because of manga. I was like, I want to make comics for a living. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move to Japan
Yeah.
and make comics. Then I was like, oh, then I'll do illustration, and then illustration moved over to like storyboarding, and now I'm like up in the air. I'm like, what do I want to do? I don't really know anymore.
I talked about this the other week about like my experiences in Bridget Berger's illustration for animators class, where she teaches us how to illustrate children's books because that's what she does. It was interesting to me that both her and the guest that she brought one week, which was John Klassen, artist and writer of I Want My Hat Back and a bunch of other books. He came in and both him and Bridget have backgrounds in animation. Like he went to Sheridan and ended up working at Leica for a while and then at DreamWorks, I believe, working on Kung Fu Panda. And he's like this really talented viz dev artist, but ultimately decided that he didn't want that, or he had a heart for something else, which is doing children's books, and he's been doing it now for many years. Not many years, but a good amount of time, and he's had a lot of success in it. And I think that really, like, I talked to him about that, and because it's something that kind of gives me anxiety that, like, I'm on this ladder right now in animation, but that might not be what I want to do ultimately. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I might want to be a writer too, like you, or
Mhm.
something, or I might want to even do picture books or something. But it's a hard ladder to try and come down from because it feels like we're being funneled in to a very specific career, you know?
Yeah, like you have to choose one right now. Like you have to
Yeah.
dedicate yourself, especially with making portfolios.
That's another thing. We get a lot of feedback on our portfolios for Portfolio Day, which is the day when all these studio execs and recruiters kind of come around, and maybe not the execs, just the recruiters and people who work as directors and stuff will come around and they'll look at everybody's work from experimental and character animation, and it's a big deal. We have instruction on sort of how to format a portfolio, but it's hard because it's like they tell you that you should do one thing, right? You should do viz dev or you should do story, or if you want to do both you should have separate portfolios, I guess.
Hmm.
But like I haven't found that to be necessarily true. I mean, I don't know what your experience is with that, but like when I went in there I was like a lot of people liked the things that I was making that weren't story. Like I had a lot of viz dev in my portfolio, and then I had some writing samples in there too, and it seemed to be that some people either loved it and then some people hated it. And you have a lot of viz dev stuff in your portfolio. I'm looking at it right now actually.
Huh?
A lot of like color scripts. Well, maybe not a lot of viz dev, but you have on your website you have like character
Oh,
designs
that's
and you
true.
have like color scripts and stuff like that, which is really cool. And film stills from your films and stuff.
Hello.
So, what is your sort of mindset when you assemble a portfolio?
Oh gosh. The thing that people usually tell us is like put what you like in there. I usually just put the best stuff in the beginning because people can stop halfway through and just like I saw that happen to my portfolio. Like it was like portfolio day was ending and there's like some people straggling behind and I was walking over to my portfolio and I see this person like flipping through like 2 pages and then they finish and I was like, ah, there it is.
Isn't that just the way?
It's like that's just the way.
Yeah, it really is.
But I was like, eh.
It's really sad. I'm kind of glad they kick us out of the room for portfolio day stuff because I wouldn't have the heart for seeing how somebody just looks at one page of my portfolio and says no, no, thank you.
In a way, I feel like it was kind of good for me, I don't know, to get in that mindset that like, oh yeah, people will stop flipping through if they're uninterested. So like start off with things that you are proud to show off in the beginning.
Gotcha. So I guess like I'm not going to say piggybacking off of. I hate it when people say piggybacking off. Building off of.
It's the same
I don't
thing.
know. There's not really a better whatever. Anyways, to sort of move on from or building off of that, do you like make long-term goals for yourself then? Is that something that you do or see as like an important thing? I know you said you don't really know at this moment and like things are kind of like up in the air and it's constantly changing, but do you have any sort of long-term goals or ones that you think are worth making?
Hmm. I actually don't really think I have any very long-term goals other than wanting job security.
Huh.
Like, I do have like this kind of more fantasy to me idea of maybe one day I can run it, like be a showrunner.
Mm.
But currently, I think in the state that I'm in, I don't think I would want to do that just yet. I'd want to feel more like grounded in like my knowledge because I feel like there's so much I have to learn still. And like especially with everybody at our school, like I see how much they know and I feel like I don't know as much as they do. The whole comparison, I guess, part of that.
Hmm.
It's like I don't know. When I look at my boards, I feel like, oh, there's so much that I don't know that it's not sinking in my brain, but people have already gotten it down. And I feel like I need more time and practice with it.
Hmm. I get that. I think it's hard when you see something come so naturally to somebody else. Like boarding does not come naturally to me either, even though that's the thing I want to do.
Hmm.
And the terrible thing about comparison is that like it's really paralyzing. I know that right now I'm like everybody that I know is scrambling for a job. Like everybody's really trying to because all these internships kind of fell through, or a lot of them did, and a lot of other opportunities. And the gate has kind of like
Floodgate.
closed a little bit for. Oh, it hasn't opened. It's definitely gotten huge for like animators, or not
Uh,
huge, but definitely there's a lot of work for animators out there. But like it feels like the entry point for people who haven't worked in the business before has been made smaller.
mm,
Like there's plenty of work for the people already in it, but for the people on the outside, it feels kind of hard. And I know for me, I'm like, well, all these people are just like they're so much better than me, and like, what is even the sense in me applying?
that same feeling.
I know it's really even like amongst all my friends. Like I'm not gonna name the names, but I'm like they're like, yeah, I just finished my application and I emailed these people, and I was like, oh gosh, what's even the point then? But that's definitely not a good way of thinking. I recognize that, but it's not necessarily avoidable all
Mhm.
the time,
Yeah.
at least for me.
Like even when I do apply for something, as I'm applying, I'm like, oh boy, this portfolio is not up to like chops for this job, or like
Yeah.
I always feel like I have such low hopes when it comes to applying for jobs.
I guess then, what are you kind of doing nowadays? Like, what are your days filled with if not trying to build the perfect portfolio and find yourself as a job, I guess.
I mainly I play some music sometimes. I own a ukulele, a melodica that I bought, and I have a keyboard that I play sometimes. And I'm working on editing for this podcast and a pilot episode with some buddies that include Ty, Will, Jess, you, Issa.
Yeah, I'm on it on a much smaller capacity than
But you are
everybody else.
still helping a lot.
Yeah, I help a little bit. I help with the writing and the voice stuff, but I think that's usually where my help kind of ends. I
That's
got
a
other
well
stuff.
needed
Yeah,
help.
yeah, yeah. I think it's important to have. We talk about this a lot. I feel like people might be getting sick of it, but I feel like it's something that never gets kind of old for me to talk about. It's like having interests outside of art or the kind of discipline that we're in, at least like drawing and doing boarding and character design and stuff, having grounded interests outside of those that help inform and kind of refresh your view on the world of the arts.
Mm.
uh, Even though I hate your melodica, uh, I still like that you play it. I like that I don't have to live with you, so I don't have to listen to it. I'm sorry to anybody who's listening who loves the melodica, but I just it's it's not good. But
It sounds great. It sounds like a weird accordion, but you play it like a piano, so it's great because I know how to play the piano.
I really tried to advise you out of that, but
I know.
you
I
went
liked
for it.
it. Just made me want to buy it more when you messaged me saying no. I won't be your friend if you buy this.
Wow, you're low key very spiteful. You buy
I
things out
know.
of spite. You applied to Calarts out of spite.
Spite drives the soul.
Yeah, so I it says okay, I'm gonna go through your website here because I needed to like sort of find more interests that you have without directly asking you as to
Oh.
make this seem more conversational.
Mm. Oh, so you're gonna go to my resume?
No, you're about. So yeah, so like I guess I mean you've been doing a lot of doing some felting I saw on Instagram,
Oh yeah.
and it says
Mhm.
on your website you love cooking.
I do. I've been cooking more recently. I always make noodles. Noodles is always my go-to.
Okay, so what do you kind of do you sort of gain anything out of that as far as like is it something you do just because of necessity, like those things that you do, or is it more of a way to sort of give yourself a breather from doing what we are in school for?
Um, I feel like so for cooking, to me, that was kind of like a night. I'm a chaotic cooker, I think, because I gather up everything and like I will cut and cook at the same time, and that will be my time limit is how fast that thing cooks. And I don't know, I feel like that in a way like de-stresses me. It's just like trying to solve the best way to cook this as a or like organize it in the best way possible to have it still come out okay and taste okay, hopefully good. And with felting for me, that kind of eased me into back into work because once I didn't get to finish my film this year, which was kind of a bummer because I actually liked that film a lot more than my last year film. And I had everything ready. I had the voices, well, except the background. I didn't have the background. That was the one thing that kind of prevented me from finishing it. But I had like the color script, the boards done, everything. But my motivation kind of died along with the like transition of going online. And then I kind of felt like the need to work was like gone and I couldn't really draw once school was over. And I feel like felting was a good way to go back into it because once I started felting, I didn't want to stop until I was done. So I would like stay up like for however hours, like 5 to 7 hours, just felting. And I didn't like care what time it was. I was just gonna finish it.
Yeah, I feel like I used to play like jazz guitar for my high school's jazz band, but instead of practicing, I always wanted to just play my ukulele. Like, because it's like it feels like those things don't have any pressure associated with them. Like, I don't really associate my identity, or at the time, I didn't associate my anything about my ability or my identity to like the ukulele. And so I was like, I'll just play this. This just feels nice to do. You know, like I see the value in practicing, but I also see the value in doing something that gives you and reinvigorates you for the next thing that you got to do because burnout is real, people. And
Yeah.
and for me right now, yeah, that's sort of also writing. Like I really enjoy writing and doing stuff like that. I haven't written anything in like a week, but actually that's not true. I'm writing a children's book, but
Oh,
uh,
really?
yeah, it's based on my adventures in my backyard woods where I got lost the other day and I had to spill out into some guy's neighborhood and I was like
Oh
three
my
miles
god.
away from my home by foot. So that
Exciting.
was crazy, but I'm writing a story about that. But yeah, that really does give me a lot of sort of, it gives me like the same sort of serotonin and dopamine from like having a successful drawing, like, but it
Mm,
doesn't it feels like I can tear things down and build things up much quicker when I'm writing
mm.
than when I'm drawing. Like if I think something's wrong in a drawing, it's usually something fundamental to the thing and I have to scrap it. But with writing, it feels like I have a much better control over that. You know what I mean?
For me, I feel like I'm usually more proud of the stuff that I write more than like the boards that I create. I feel like the stories that I tell are more personal and like they usually relate to something that's happened in my life and it's like me kind of solving a problem that I've had or like just I'm a big nostalgic person so it's like reliving something and remembering how
Mm.
fun that was and trying to express that in writing. And seeing other people enjoy that and see the fun and relate to it makes me really happy.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, I did it.
Yeah, like your all your writing and stuff has a very like sweet tone to it, like a bittersweet tone. It's like very a lot of it is engaged in like the childhood stories.
Mm.
Um, like was I guess I kind of want to talk about your the film you made last year, Little One, that was screened in a couple festivals, right?
Hmm.
Was that how do you feel about that? You're laughing right now, but I mean it's very sweet. It's very like, and you say you write from experiences and stuff like that. I mean, sort of what was that process like of writing that and putting that out there?
That was the first thing I've ever written, like as a script. So it was really, to me, really rough. Like,
Hmm.
I feel like the dialogue wasn't that great. I don't know. I can't actually fully sit through and watch it now. I can only get through like maybe I can only get through like the first 10 seconds and then like I like cringe and pause it and I'm like I can't handle it anymore. Like I know the intention behind it. It's kind of sweet, I guess. It's like me and my dad. But like, oh god, it hits way too close. Being like it's my house that I took pictures of for the backgrounds and it's like my dad, he calls me little one, so it's like another little addition to like too personal. I don't know.
So wait, so you don't enjoy watching it, or you can't get through it because it's like too real for you, or you just cringe at how your writing ability or the piece as a total, I guess, from and how you've grown since then. Is that
I think both. Like, I feel I had a different idea of how I wanted to approach it when I first made the film. Like, it was just gonna be like a girl going through boxes and living through old memories because nostalgia. Later on, added the dad, and then it became more and more like real life. And then my dad,
mm.
like, he likes to be updated in what I do, so he started asking about the film, and he really likes the film, of course. But I don't know. For me, it's like it feels like too cringy. I don't know why.
I feel like nostalgia is like a really tough thing to kind of write or to put in and not make it saccharine or overly sweet. You know what I mean? Like I'm not
Mm.
saying that yours was because I really liked your film.
Really?
So maybe it just is too you're too close to it and you're seeing how close it is to your life because I did not know that your dad called you little one and I did not know that that was your house that you took
Oh,
pictures of. I
wow.
mean, I guess I could have figured that, but you know, I was watching Mad Men the other week, and I don't know how much I vibe with the whole show, but I've already finished it. But there's a thing that Don Draper says things that kind of stick out to me oftentimes, the main character, and I remember he said in one episode that pain or that nostalgia literally means the pain from an old wound, and I thought that was really like
I like that.
really poignant and really great and really hard to kind of wrap my head around initially, but it just felt right, you
Mm.
know?
It is.
Yeah, it's like it hurts almost to think about things that happened to you, even like the really great things about childhood, and that's a really hard thing to capture in writing oftentimes.
I feel like nostalgia generally just makes you sad because you're remembering the good times and you're remembering like that was the peak, but that peak is gone now. Or you think about sad things that have happened and like, oh, that happened to me. So like either way, it's a kind of a sad situation of some sort. But I always like to, I guess I'm, even though it hurts me, I want more of it.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's what a lot of my dreams are kind of centered around. When I dream, it's always like very nostalgic. I think that's the feeling.
Mm.
Um, but are there any sort of examples of work that sort of inspire you in the way that you write or the things that you really like?
Let me see. I feel like most of the things that I've written, especially for like Nicole's class, those all stem from a memory and not really anything that I've read or watched. I mean, actually, oh wait, never mind. I got one thing. um, there's a guy. His name is Freddie. He's a comic artist. I think his comic or his book is called Hot Summer Night, Hot Summer Days. I'm
Hmm.
messing it up. I have it. I own it. And I wanted to capture that kind of feeling of like kids hanging out late at night, and that was the story I made of like the two kids running away from the cops who drank beer out in the parking lot. Because because technically that did come from an event that I like did when I was in middle school, but I wanted to capture like the freeing feeling of when school's over and like school's done and getting into shenanigans.
It's definitely a really relatable thing to try. I always hate to kind of reminisce on those things. They make me like angry at my older self sometimes. Like, even though they're like, I shouldn't be faulting myself for something I did when I was like 13 or 12. But like, I don't know. Always hate thinking about it. I think that's why the stories that I write kind of try to further remove. I try to remove them from reality in some ways, or try to remove them from the past, and still trying to still keep them grounded, which is a struggle in and of itself. But yeah, I really like the I like when other people do nostalgia. I just don't like thinking about
You don't
my
like
own
doing it
past in that
yourself.
way. It's hard. It's hard to sort of face your older self.
Yeah, I mean, but I feel like a part of it and like writing it out is like acceptance of it and
Hmm.
like acknowledging what you've done and acknowledging your mistakes. That's what I guess that's what I kind of do when I write. It's like me remembering what I've done and like saying yes, I did it and now I can improve on that. I don't have
Hmm.
to be that same person.
Interesting. So I think that a lot of people take different stances on writing. Like some people are like, especially our teacher Nicole Panter is always like, don't write about something that happened to you, or like don't do that. It's like she gets very sort of upset. That's all you do. But it's hard not to. I think it's really hard not to write. I don't think she's saying don't write from your life experiences, but it's sort of hard to figure out a
Yeah,
nice middle
especially if you say
ground.
like that happened, like, oh, I didn't want to change that because that happened to me. Like I know she would like hate me if I said
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a hard thing to sort of uh, figure out the what you like to write. So I guess yeah, my sort of question or my observation more is that a lot of people have different sort of views on the role that writing plays in the writer's life. Like, is it a means of expelling something that they've been keeping pent up, or is that necessary to have good writing? Like, do you have to relate it to things that have happened to you specifically? I don't know if that's always true, but I feel like it's hard to not acknowledge that when I read like your writing, which is always really fun and really sweet, and it feels very personal at times. I don't know. Where do you sort of stand on that whole debate?
Like stand on it like how again? Sorry.
No, it's all right. Sort of where do you stand on the question of whether or not like, or on the spectrum? I guess it's not really a yes or no. It's not binary, but like what is the where do you stand on the spectrum of writing from your own life, like being biographical, like in a like sort of like how Ty's films oftentimes feel very
Oh
biographical.
yeah, they
And
definitely do.
yeah, Ty Wilson, we had on an episode too. He writes very biographical pieces. He even acknowledges it himself, but he does a nice thing where he kind of tries to remove it a little bit, like 2 degrees off from his own life.
Mm,
And then there are people who write exclusively about things that like seem so far off from anything that anybody could have experienced, and those usually are more childish or sci-fi or something like that. You know, it's just so far removed that it doesn't have any bearing on their own life. And I think some people believe that there is a way to write that is best, and some people think that I don't know, writing about yourself is not okay, or you shouldn't do it that often,
mm.
or in the most removed sense. So where do you sort of fall on that spectrum?
For me, I personally think that writing from your own experiences makes it, I guess, makes it more relatable as well as you have something to grab onto when you're writing about something. Like
Hmm.
I also try and separate myself from the event in a way. Like I try and think of it from an outside view. And I guess because maybe I've grown up and now I'm like an adult and I look at those events like, oh, those were children who did that. Like I remember my mentality from that moment. So that's what helps influences like the dialogue. in the writing of like I remember this is how children like how I spoke when I was young, but I try and view it as an like third person. Ooh, I'm getting all over the place.
No, yeah, I understand that. Like, it's so hard to write for kids when you're an adult. Like, you'd think that people would know how to write for children, seeing as how everybody has been a child at one point. But we seem to so easily forget how children actually talk. Like, I'll see like lines of dialogue in like other people's films where they'll have a kid say, "You will never get away with this, you crook," like, or something like that. Where you're like, a child would never use the word crook. What are you talking about? Children don't talk like that. They speak in very like
Swipe.
hyperbolic, yeah, like non-coherent at times. But yeah, I think it's a really, I think you do that really well. I think you write children in very well, and it's something I don't think I usually write children into things these days. I usually keep it people around my age or old people. Old people are fun to write.
I remember the first like script I wrote about college kids, and that ooh, I was like, this is I don't think I'm writing them very well. And then as I went on, I got younger and younger.
We don't have a very conventional college experience, as it were. Like, I feel like there's a lot of what normal colleges provide that is not a part of our. I don't think that many people are as stoked about maybe their major as we are. I don't know. Like, it's so integral to everything that we do. Like, that everybody will be like, let's get together and like draw,
Let's have
or
a
let's
kid
make a
show.
pilot episode of a
Oh, yeah.
television show. Like, I don't see, like, it's not something you see, I guess, with like business majors where they're like, let's start a let's start a business over the summer. I don't know what I'm being ignorant, but
I mean,
but
I
yeah,
also
I don't know.
think they have bigger like classes, and I don't know if they would interact as much, right?
Well, I went to big boy college. I went to regular
Oh, you went to
college,
big
and
boy
I
college.
still feel like I didn't get the fullest experience. It was a commuter school basically, so it felt a lot like community college at times because the classes were only like 30 people, and I never went to any of the lectures that were really big, and we don't think we even had that many. My sister is in college, and she says that she has a lecture that has 300 people in it, which is insane. I can't even imagine that. Like, that's like a significant portion of our school that we go to currently. So I don't know. Yeah, definitely kind of hard to write for me from those experiences as well. So I oftentimes kind of like shy away from experiences that I don't really know much about, even if they're not necessarily. I wouldn't be wrong for writing about them, like being a frat bro or something. I don't know anything about that. I think I wanted to wrap up things the same way that we always do every week. I'm so interested to hear your recommendations, and so help me God if you recommend It or It Chapter 2. I'm going to lose my brain. I didn't like either of those movies, and you love them. You just love those characters. You love those little guys. And you know what? Yeah, I guess I should have mentioned Anya sells sticker packs for. Are you still selling sticker packs?
Yeah, I guess so. I was gonna like take it off. I don't know. It's kind of just there, but yeah. I sold all my keychains, so that was nice.
Yeah,
Money.
there you go. But yeah, you have a love for the It boys. I don't know what they're called. The Mike and Brian. Is Brian one of them? I don't remember.
Totally. Brian, Chad.
Yeah, Brian, Chad, Omar. You know, the It boys.
No, I mean, okay. The reason why I like the first movie kind of because it's nostalgic. It's all about nostalgia.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Like
And
cuz
a
it's a
giant clown
kids.
man.
Okay, and the clown guy is there. But like I think he's kind of funny. I think the clown's kind of funny. But maybe just cuz I've always liked clowns, like not scary kinds, but like them as a design, they're really fun.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm sorry I had to call you
Oh
out like
yes.
that, but yeah, do you have any sort of things that you'd recommend people watch or play video game wise? And I said you're a gamer, uh, and or books to read, anything that sort of inspires you or you feel like people should get on.
Okay, well, let's think. I've just been watching The Office mainly, but I always recommend Barry and Bill Hader's in it. He's Barry.
I guess we're starting this podcast off with acknowledging your love for Bill Hader and ending it with two Bill Hader movies, It Chapter 2 and Barry. And Barry is actually very good. I
Yeah,
loved
Barry's
Barry.
really
It's
good.
such a fun show. It's like
I'm
the
glad
nice
someone else
balance of
has
like
seen it.
funny and dramatic.
Hmm.
Like it does drama exceptionally well.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really like the tone of it and like what they talk about, and yeah, I just like the feeling I get from it, which is why I like it so much, and I always recommend it to people. But I think only one person like I've told has watched it. Wait, is that right? Out of like whatever the people I've told before, only one of them have seen it. So I was like, oof. But they really liked it, so that was nice. Um, but
Yeah.
other than that, for books, I feel like there's an author, Casey Novak. Oh shoot. Well, they. I have the book. Should I just? I think it's called Beauty. Okay. So it's by Casey Nowak. It's called Girl Town.
Hmm.
I really like their line work and the stories that they tell. I feel like it's very personal and also very relatable. It's a anthology of short stories that they've made or
Hmm.
comics. Yeah.
Nice. I don't know if I said this last episode or not, but I just finished up the first season of The Great on Hulu, which is about Catherine the Great, and to me it has this sort of same sort of really great wit about it that Barry has. Like at times it's very like funny. It's sort of like Game of Thrones meets Barry in that way. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but it's very funny at times, and then it's also very dramatic. Also, in the series finale or the season finale is so phenomenal. I'd highly recommend that.
Ooh.
With that, Anya, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today, and thank you for editing this this podcast as well.
Thank you for having
Uh,
me.
yes,
And
never
thank you
come
to me
back.
for editing. uh,
Yeah,
Kisses to myself.
yeah, you're doing a great job, Anya.
Oh, thank
Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Anybody who is, I'm sure it's mostly our friends, but anybody who's listening is our friend. So we thank you very, very much, and we hope to see you again next week. Bye, guys.